Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tao of Glass podcast, episode 3, with your hosts, Trent and Kevin. Trent the Wizard, Kevin the Dane. Two of the weirdest guys in the universe. So this is we're going to have a fast start to this episode because it's just funny. You know, Trent and I jumped on it just a few minutes ago, and before hitting record, we were already like deep into this and deep into a discussion about the projects that we're working on in our lives and how all of that connects to the universe and everything else. And so it's just funny because we're already just naturally, organically riffing on this. And then I was like, hold on, like Trent, hit record. This is exactly why we're doing this podcast, is to help each other and then also help our audience navigate this, which is the friction of the human experience within an electromagnetic universe that very clearly has consciousness and spirituality.
Yeah, completely. It's one of those things where it's like you're a conscious divine being yourself, making decisions every moment, but at the same time, so is everyone else. Yes. And that compounding effect of what their decisions, how that affects your decisions, and how to manage that, really, you know what I mean? How do you deal with that without being detrimental to relationships or, detrimental to yourself even, so.
Right. And that is the conflict and the challenge that needs to be resolved for each of us individually. Is how do you reconcile, your physical being with your evolutionary desires, with your, conscious expectations, and how that all wraps up into something bigger than you or bigger than me, right? Where this conversation started today was around the projects that we're working on and how we want things to go faster, but the universe doesn't care about faster, right? That's us as physical beings.
Time is a construct that we made up just for us to feel better about things.
Exactly. Yeah, like this project I'm working on, like there's dates on the calendar. People want to hit the dates, and I have no control over the dates. I can do what I wake up every day ready to go. And I bring my A game every day. Like my commitment to the universe, like I feel deeply that I have an obligation to the universe to be the best I can be every day. Yeah. And a lot of days, I'll be honest, man, like a lot of days it's not great. That's not the point. Like I show up ready to play every day.
Remember, to that point is, hey, your A game is going to change. What that number is, if we're categorizing by numbers from 1 to 100, every day that's going to be different depending on how you feel physically, how you feel mentally, how you feel spiritually. Like that's going to change. Some days you're going to be at like 96 to 99, right? Other days you're going to be operating at like 85, but that's your best for that day. But like the point is that you bring the best, whatever you're capable of on that day.
Yes. So I'll share a little anecdote with you too that I find amusing still. When my kids were younger, there were days that I'd come home from work or I'd pick them up from school or whatever, right? And I'd say, oh man, I'd say, how was school, right? And they would talk about school, and then they'd say, and sometimes, kids don't always ask what their parents or adults, how their day was, but sometimes they'd ask, like, how was your day, Dad? And there were days where I'd be like, oh man, I was horrible today. I got fired. And then they would look puzzled, and they'd be like, well, but you own the company, right? And I'd say, oh yeah, I have to go back tomorrow, but today I sucked at it, right? And like, if I were my own boss, which I am, like I would fire myself for today, but then I still have to go back tomorrow, right? Because it's my company.
Yeah.
So
it's such an interesting conundrum to like really wrap your mind around that, of like understanding and being like self-loving to oneself, in the sense of like, my best is going to change. What I can show up to every day is going to change every day. And like realizing and being okay with that, and just trying to push forward, not putting too much energy or time into it, just understanding this is where I'm at, but let's do the best that I can. You know, I think that there's a lot of energy to be wasted in the should haves, could haves, would haves, do you know what I mean? That kind of stuff. And for me, like what I'd really try to focus on is on like, this happened, this is what's currently in front of me. What can I do now in my current capacity to get things moving forward? You know,
Right.
like really trying to move the ball down the field. And what is my ability to do that right now? You know, and sometimes maybe my email isn't as nicely written, or my tone of my voice isn't as cheery on like the phone. But the fact of the matter is that you're showing up and you're having the phone calls, you're writing the emails, you're doing what's necessary to actually try and get things done and communicate.
Yes. Yeah. And then to add to that, I mean, one of the points of frustration that we all feel at certain times is there are days when you feel like, wow, I did bring my A game. I did everything right. Like I did everything I was supposed to do. I kept all the promises I made. I had the knowledge and the skill and the energy to deliver, and yet it didn't turn out the way I wanted it. And so there's a piece of, and I'll just share with you, like I tell people all the time that the two things in life that will teach you blind faith are parenting and business ownership. Because every day, like you do everything you can to quote unquote get it right, and getting it right is different for everybody.
Mm.
But you try to get everything right for yourself, right? Like you try to be a good parent and a good spouse and a good role model for your kids. And yet there's an element of blind faith that you have to reconcile all the time. Like right now, right in this very moment, I believe my daughter is at school. I don't have any proof of that. I don't have any evidence. I don't know where she is. I can't see her, can't touch her.
Yeah.
Maybe she's not there at all. How do I know?
Yeah.
So there is blind faith right now that she's at school and she's okay. Like she's with friends that she adores and they adore her. She's got teachers that care about her and care about her personal development and education. She's in an environment that's safe and productive, and she has every opportunity to thrive. That's what I believe in this moment. And yet I don't have any evidence of that. So there's this blind faith that we all have to deal with or reconcile, which is, well, it's blind faith.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it is. And like the best you can do with blind faith, you know, and I think this kind of brings into like an important business topic of like vetting, right? Vetting opportunity, and whether that's with a vendor, whether that's with a potential client, you know, vetting the real opportunity before you open your network. You know what I mean? I mean, if you open your network and you say, hey, I've got this awesome opportunity, here's what it is, and then that opportunity turns out to not be anything, that could be detrimental to your relationships. I mean, like there's that level of like needing to like kind of protect your relationships and like what you're opening yourself up to, you know what I mean? As far as energetically and things like that. Like, yes, I want this big deal, but like how realistic is the deal? How realistic are these people? Do they actually have the means to execute on this opportunity that they're bringing to you, right? If not, I mean, you going and opening up your network, it's just kind of like another tick mark, you know what I mean? It's like that friend that always wants to hang out and never schedules a time or schedules time and then never shows up on time or has to reschedule or recancel, you know what I mean? Whatever. It really is, your reputation as far as your ability to execute on these opportunities matters. And I think that's one of the hardest things in business, is to really kind of tease that out as far as what's real, what's actually possible, and what isn't. And you know, you've got to believe in everything, right? I mean, it's kind of like trust first, verify later. But part of that trusting part is knowing the right questions and the right things to ask in order to really vet out that person, that opportunity, that deal, whatever it may be, as far as the actual reality of it going through, you know? I mean, personally, for example, I just had someone approached me about 30,000 tons of road salt, which I do not know anything about road salt. I don't deal in road salt, never have dealt in
You
road
just
salt.
don't, you don't have it like in the trunk of your car.
Yeah, no, it's not like it's just sitting out in the parking lot. I got pallets of road salt, 30,000 tons. Yeah, no big deal. But at the same time, because of the client and working on another deal with them, it was like, well, let me go and find out. Well, this is also, I think, something to think of like, again, knowing the same questions. Even if you've been doing business with them, you should still be willing to ask these questions and not just trust like, oh, well, we've done business on other things, like this is real. Still ask those questions. I don't think that that's inappropriate. And I think that is actually, in fact, more appropriate for yourself because, okay, like your guy wants 30,000 tons of road salt. Like, where does he want it shipped to? I want it shipped to England. Great. Do they want FOB? Are they picking up from the place or do they want logistics? They want us to ship it for them. Like, what's happening? And what's their timeline on it? You know what I mean? And me, again, I'm kind of a trusting, gullible person at times. And because of the nature of my business with this person, I just trusted. So I went up and opened my network with that. I found road salt dealers, sea salt dealers. You wouldn't believe what I found through my network. It was like, holy cow, I found all kinds of people and all kinds of pricing and great stuff, right? Let's talk about this deal. Let's get something done. And then that's when he came back and was like, well, I don't know about this guy. And it was like, all right, man, like really, I would appreciate you vetting them a little bit more on your side of things before you ask me to go open my network to try and find something, especially when I was upfront about not knowing anything about it. Like, right, like it was sure, like maybe I can find this. I don't know. I try to be very transparent in all our dealings, but I think that's a very important thing so that you're not wasting your energy, your time, and damaging relationships that, potentially could do other business with you. I mean, the person that I went to is someone who's helped me find all kinds of things, and this one was supposed to be like a quick, yeah, like they want it now, let's get it done, let's go. And then turns out they're not real. So then that's egg on my face. I have to go back and say, well, sorry, the buyer isn't really ready to do this. They're not capable of doing this, or whatever the excuse is for whatever reason the buyer did not. But really being aware of those types of things, I think are very important for a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, because like there's this thing where it was a very good piece of advice that I actually heard just the other day, where it was, don't agree to unfavorable terms. Make sure that you ask for what you need before you close the deal. Because sometimes we're just desperate to get a deal closed, right? So we'll agree to not necessarily favorable terms, thinking that's our foot in the door, when really it's you're just hurting yourself, and you're limiting yourself as far as, now you're going to be actually not making any money. It was kind of like a loss leader, hopefully, you know what I mean? But you don't know. So it's a really hard process to kind of go through, but I think that really being focused and knowing what you want out of your relationships will help that vetting process to kind of qualify people a bit more, which also helps to manage that stress, right? If you're working with good people, then that, again, like we've said, like you've put yourself out to the universe, and the universe is like, okay, this is what I want, this is what I need. And it's going to bring more of those back to you. But the more that you engage with those types of people, like it's going to happen more often for you, I think that you really need to understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish, and what are those KPIs, those performance indicators, right? Because at a certain point, you trust someone, like you're going to get me this document by said time. Things might happen. Snowstorm. I flew in from Florida Sunday night. There was a snowstorm. It took me an extra hour and a half to get home. I didn't know that. That just happened. Right. So, having a certain level of patience, but also expectation, and communicating that, I think is really important.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there, and there are things that we can dive deeper on. So one of them is, and just getting back to faith, right? Like having the faith that if you are, I think your point around the why behind you're doing something, like really exploring why you are pursuing a thing, an opportunity, or whatever it is, or a relationship, exploring why is critically important to setting the stage for the outcome.
Mm.
And then the other piece of that is just having faith that the outcome will be what it will be.
So, question for you on that, on those 2 points. Do you think that like the pursuit of money, like the reason for this relationship or the reason for this deal is because I want to make money? I think that anyone that's doing business, the reason that you do business in today's day and age, and I mean, if you have different opinions, please let me know. But like anything that I do within business is with the intent to help someone, but to also make money. I want to make money. That's why I'm pursuing this opportunity. Yes, I want to help you because I think I have the resources that I can execute on, and I want to make money at it.
Yes.
I don't know if that's necessarily is that.
Well, I have an answer for that, and I'm excited. I'll tell you why I'm excited.
Yes.
Because most of the time when Trent and I meet, it's usually me asking the questions, and we explore things together, and I have inputs. But usually, it's Trent giving me advice or telling me about some philosopher from 2,000 years ago, and how easy it is to reconcile that thing that I've been so worried about, right? So this time I'm excited because I actually have a perspective on that I think will be helpful. So on my team, the way we describe it is that money is the scoreboard, but it's not the why.
Okay.
The amount of money in a deal or the outcome, the monetary outcome of something is just the scoreboard. It tells you that, like, as a society or as a species, we've agreed that, well, this is an indicator of performance. It's not even an indicator of success. Like you can have a lot of money and not be successful. You could be a total jerk or miserable or whatever, right? And so, but we've agreed, we have a pretty universal agreement that money is a metric that we use to determine performance, right? And then the other piece of that is that really money is energy. It's a way to track the flow of energy. So like I needed something and you solved it. So my energy flowed to you. And, in the spirit of this scoreboard, you're getting more points. You're getting more stuff because you filled that need, whatever it is, whether it's road salt or whatever, loaf of bread. And so, I personally have always thought about money as energy, and the way money flows is tracking the flow of that energy.
Mm.
And again, money is the scoreboard, but it's not the why. Like, I don't work to get a certain number in my account.
It's not
I work to be able to take a vacation with my family.
Because like the whole point of the game is to win the game, right? But that doesn't mean like you score so many points and you win the game. I mean, some games are like that, but most games, as we're talking about sports and things like that, analogy wise, it's not about how many points you score, it's about how good you play the game.
Yes.
So the why, you know what I mean? Talking about that why and like understanding, okay, why are we working as a team? Okay, this is the goal we're trying to accomplish. How are we going to do that? The why is going to determine the how. You know what I mean? And that's
and there's an art to it as well. I mean, so using the sports metaphors, like I've seen Wayne Gretzky play, and when he was on the ice, it was as though he was playing a different game than everybody else on the ice. There were the two teams on the ice that were playing. They're pro. They're athletes who are in the best physical condition, compared to anybody. And they are highly trained and highly skilled and experienced. And yet the way his level of grace and his level of play was so superior to anybody else on the ice, always. And so to your point, like it didn't matter if he scored 1 goal or 10 goals in a game. It was like watching an artist at work every time he was on the ice. I saw Joe Montana play during the 49er heydays in Candlestick Park, and similar. Like there are people that rise to another level of excellence in any field. I'm using sports as a metaphor, but in every field, there are people that rise to another level of excellence. And at that point, it's not like whether Gretzky got a $20 million contract or $100 million contract, probably had very little influence on the quality of his life.
Right.
But it was equally or more important for him to be very, very good.
The impact, the level of his play, like whether he was 20 or $100 million, he was there to play the game.
Yes.
Not
Michael Jordan, same. Like so much of the time, Michael Jordan's level of play was beyond anybody else on the court.
Yeah.
With some of the most skilled and highly trained athletes in the world.
Yeah.
And that's actually something that's always fascinated me. And I think this is highly relevant to this conversation, this exploration is, the why does change over time, but like your personal desire or my personal desire to be great at what we do does go beyond money.
Yeah. Well, and that's something that I really feel like, and I've been struggling with this, I guess, because it's one of those things of like, I feel like I've been doing quite a lot of things where I'm not really making any money, but I am helping people. And it's kind of like trying to reevaluate my time. Like, do I need to like do differently? Whereas in like internally, I don't feel like that I do. I feel like these things, while they're not necessarily making me money, they are helping me. And like, that's kind of the weird thing is that I feel like I'm helping the other people. They're the ones that came and asked me for something. And I said, oh yeah, I can totally do that. Or yeah, I can totally show up for that or whatever. But at the same time, I feel like that it's a two-way street when you start playing on that level. When you start thinking primarily in monetary terms, and that was kind of like the question I asked. It was more of like a check myself before I wreck myself type question, because it's like, if I start thinking that way, if everything I do has to make me money, well then that's a problem, for me, because then I feel like that would really severely limit the amount of interactions that I would have with people. It would be a very selfish, self-centered way to operate, day-to-day basis, whereas like there's times.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it really is. For me anyway, I find it healthier for me, both mentally and spiritually, to think of it as a transfer of energy. Like, hey, I'm doing this thing for you. And on a spiritual level, I expect nothing in return. But the right way for you to show your appreciation is to transfer some of that energy to me. And they're game tokens.
Yeah.
Because and they really are game tokens, because if you really get down to it, right, at the end of the day, money serves no real purpose other than in our society, it's a token for freedom, right? You get freedom of choice. If you've got the game tokens, you can choose to have lobster dinner instead of McDonald's, or you can choose to fly first class instead of coach, right? So and maybe getting back to the tile of glass metaphor, right? Like maybe flying first class is not important to you. It's not important to everybody. Like I don't care about boarding a flight first. I've never understood why people will pay extra to get on early and sit there. Doesn't make sense to me. But some people, that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so just in terms of the money discussion, I actually do have a chapter in Tao Glass about, like, if money is important to you, then make more of it and spend less of it, right? It's not rocket surgery.
A simple concept.
Yeah, put more. If having money in your glass is important, then you can put more money in your glass, and you can dump out less money in your glass as you deem appropriate.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more to it than just like we've been talking about. It's a lot more than just a number, right? They're game tokens that you can't take with you when you die. It's only going to buy you some freedom while you're alive. And how you spend it is an individual preference. Like for one person, a piece of fine art is like amazing, and their soul lights up because they've got this piece of art on the wall that they spent, thousands or in some cases hundreds of thousands to have. For somebody else, could be a nickel at a garage sale. It doesn't matter. They don't care. It's not a thing.
Yeah, may as well be toilet paper.
Might as well be toilet paper, right? Exactly. So, and money, that's actually an interesting point as well, right? That money has taken different shapes and forms over the last 100,000 years. Like sometimes it's a rock. It's a pretty rock. Like for some reason humans are like, clamshells, exactly. For a while it was tulips. There was a tulip bubble for a while.
Or salt. For a long time it was salt.
Salt, yes. Salt was a form of currency for a long time. And then here you are. So we've taken this conversation full circle. Yeah. Because here you are dealing in salt. I mean, it's road salt.
Oh man. If only. And like it's just interesting because it's like all of those details, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Well, why does this client want 30,000 tons of road salt? I don't know. I didn't necessarily ask their reasoning. They asked for something and I'm trying to find it. You know what I mean? But it's like when you really get into the details of like a deal, those things really do matter, kind of finding out intention, you know what I mean? And I think that's a conversation of intention and belief. Like when it comes to business, do you actually intend to move forward with this, or is this going to die, in 6 months because you don't really have the ambition and intention and motivation and resources to make it happen, or is that what you're looking for? Look, I had the motivation and intention, but I'm looking for resources, right? I'm capital, whatever it may be. But I think that the strength of those things, the actual authentic genuineness of those things. And even still, the person might be as authentic and as genuine as they want. And even if they had, even when they did get their resources, they weren't able to execute and actually make it happen, make it thrive. They weren't able to get roots, so to speak, as using a growing analogy type thing. And I think that's a really important thing to analyze. I mean, just this morning we were on a phone call with a client, not a client. I mean, they are a client, but they also have a product. And we just started our own little distribution arm of things where we're distributing products and, going out and kind of chasing that down. There's a lot of buzz around this new product within the industry that we're in, a lot of it. But we've also noticed, because we've been around, like, what's the cleanliness? How are they actually processing it? Is it clean? Is it safe for consumers to actually, take? And then what's the longevity of it, right? Do we think the government's going to come in and regulate it? Because a lot of the stuff that we do is, what they call alternative products, which a lot of things don't have a lot of regulation. But when things start happening in the marketplace, someone starts getting market share, then the regulation starts coming in and that starts to complicate things. And so what does that look like? Are you planning for that? Or are you planning just to kind of like ride that initial wave and get out? You know what I mean? Like, what's the intention? What's the actual motivation behind doing it? Because like for me with like this new product, it feels like, well, we're just going to try and ride a wave and make some money off of this product. But actually, like, it doesn't necessarily follow the why. Like, they've got a lot of logical things behind the why of like, oh, the product helps with this, it does that. And it's like, okay, I'm not necessarily debating that per se, but I'm actually wondering the amount of the benefit that those people that they're claiming the person's actually going to get. What's that perceived value? Because it's like, while that is logically and actually factually true, what's the reality of the perceived benefit of the consumer? that's really going to determine the longevity of a product. I mean, just for example, in like dietary supplements, it's like there's new supplements that come out. There's some new trend all the time, right? Oh, green caffeine to lose weight or whatever. But then there's those mainstays that you just know, like fish oils, for example. You know that if you take fish oils, it's going to help your brain. It's going to help your joints. It's lubricating. You know what I mean? Like those omegas are going to do things for you. And that is known. That's sustained. You know what I mean? Whereas like, green caffeine, well, you're not going to take green caffeine for your entire life because like at some point you don't want to lose any more weight. You know what I mean? So what is the lifespan, you know what I mean, or longevity of that product? What's the plan? What's the intention behind it if you're going to do it? You know what I mean? What's that opportunity look like?
That's right.
Those details are important, but not always so well thought through. And even if they are, as we know, best laid plans go awry. They don't always go as planned.
Sure. Yeah, so I think there's an important meditation there. Whenever you're starting anything new or starting down a path with somebody else, which is just exploring, okay, why do I want this? Why do I want to spend time on this? Because really, more important than money, right? Your time and your health are more important than money.
It's your only true currency.
You can't find anybody that would argue with that, right? Like, oh, I'd rather have money than time, right? I'd rather have money than good health. I don't know anyone that's ever said that. So anytime you're starting down a new path, in my opinion, it's important to reflect on, okay, why do I want to spend time on this? Is it good for me physically? Is it good for me mentally? Is it good for me spiritually? Why do I want to help that person? Or why do I want to do that thing? And if it's money, there's an underlying question there, which is, well, okay, why? Why do I want more money? What am I going to do with it?
Right.
Like, is there something that I'm going to do with it? Like just having more money isn't really a thing. There's actually no value in that. But there is value in saying, well, if I do this project and I help this person, like I'm going to be helping them and they're going to be happy and that's going to make me happy. So there's something it's satisfying for me personally if I help them. And if they pay me, then I can use that to X. Like I've always wanted to, whatever. I've always wanted to see Italy and then I can use that money to go see Italy or whatever. Right. There's more to it than just saying, I'm going to do that so I get more cash, so I can send somebody an invoice and they'll pay it, right? There's nothing really exciting about, an invoice, but there is something exciting about.
Right, 'cause it's always like, when I send an invoice, it's exciting, but it's exciting because of the things that I'm thinking of, what it can actually further fuel me to be able to do, right? The further freedoms or choices that open up because of that invoice, right?
Yes.
Like whether that's more marketing budget or whether it's taking my family on a vacation or whether it's buying a new car, like whatever that is that makes it exciting, right? But there's got to be that why that is intentional behind what it is you're doing. Which is interesting, as we were talking earlier, I think that's also where kind of like passion comes into. There's things that you can do, but if you're not necessarily passionate about it, just because you can, doesn't mean you should.
Right.
Like we could go and throw nukes at all the other, China, Russia, whatever superpower is outside of the United States and just obliterate them. But that doesn't mean we should, because we know that the consequences of that are going to affect us detrimentally, right?
Yes.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Right.
So
yes. And that's
a harder line to really delineate within business, because it's not nuclear war, right? It's, well, I can help this person, and yes, I can, but should I, as far as like spending my time and energy and things on it, is that something that I should really do?
Right. Yeah, and I think time and energy are actually bigger pieces of the equation than money.
Agreed.
Because there are people, like I know right now, there are jobs I could do that people would pay me for. And I don't want to do those jobs. Like
Yep.
I would still be providing a product or service to them, and they would still pay me for it. But I've chosen not to do it because it's not spiritually fulfilling for me.
Right.
And the money isn't worth it, in my opinion.
Right.
Right.
The value isn't there.
There are a lot of jobs I could do. There are a lot of jobs I'm qualified for that I don't want.
I completely agree. I mean, we just went through this with my own company. We got offered equity in a new startup doing, it was crypto taxes. And like for us to get that equity, like one of us, either I or my business partner, would have to go full time and be reading the blockchain and categorizing, like really helping them do heavy lifting in the upfront to launch. And it's like, even with the percentage of equity and the like time compensation that we would have gotten, it's like, I don't want to spend my time doing that. That's not worth it for me,
Right.
And as much as I believe in what they're doing, I love what they're doing, and I think that they're going to do very well, despite all that. I don't want to, for the next 6 to 12 months, however long it takes, because we don't know, you know what I mean? Everything always takes longer than you think and costs more. That kind of like a general Murphy's Law rule of thumb. It just wasn't, it wasn't worth pursuing. There were other things that are significantly less exciting for most people. They would think, like, look at the two opportunities that we're doing, and it's like, yeah, but for this, I'm helping them do their thing, and it would take this much of my time, and this is my compensation. Yet I am much more passionate about this over here. And even though like the opportunity is way less exciting, I would much rather spend a majority of my time doing this because I'm passionate about it. I really feel that it makes a difference in a significant way. And that's because of my belief structure, right?
Right.
Belief structures are different. But that was kind of one of the original reasons I brought up that question of like, realistically, like when you're doing things like money or passion. And I think that's a hard balance to find, especially as like an entrepreneur or a founder, as a business owner. It's,
Well, I mean, for everybody in life, right?
Yeah.
Because there is a line where if I had to have money, meaning in order to feed myself and my family, there's almost nothing I wouldn't do.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And and then there's this, this may take us in another direction, but there's debate now in our society around universal wage. Like, what if robots can take over everything and we can just pay everyone to do whatever they want? Then that way everybody could be the narrative I've heard is then everyone could get the band back together and they can just do their artwork and do whatever passion project they feel good about. But there's a problem with that, which is, well, somebody still has to X, right? Whatever that is. I mean, robots can do a lot of it. I was going to say, like, somebody still has to pick up the trash or wash the dishes or whatever, and robots can do a lot of that stuff. But there's also something about the human condition that makes us, well, let me say it this way. There's a correlation between challenge and fulfillment. Like if I do something challenging, I am more fulfilled than if I do something totally brainless or not challenging. Even if like the money's equal.
Right.
If I have two projects and they're paying the same, and one of them I'm like, God, I could do that in my sleep, and I probably will. Versus another one where I'm like, wow, that one's challenging. There's a puzzle to solve. There are new people to meet. They're going to challenge I'm going to expand my horizons. I'm going to expand how I think, and my knowledge base is going to increase by doing that. I'm going to take the one that's more challenging. I will. Not everybody would, I guess, but I would absolutely welcome the one that's more challenging because for me, it's more fulfilling.
Well, and so like to that point, this whole universal wage thing, that's kind of interesting in the sense of like, I think people have the grass is greener syndrome with that. Because they think that, well, that means that I can do whatever I want at any time of the day. But again, going back to like your best every day and what you want and what you need every day isn't the same. It's not the same. And so like you think like, oh, I'm just going to go get the band back together and do my art. And it's like, yeah, but you still have to sell the art. You still have to go to all the events, coordinate all that logistics, getting your art there, all that stuff, drive, you know what I mean? Or fly, travel, whatever it is that you're trying to do for it, which is kind of like, you can't skip those steps. Those are things that are unavoidable. There's things in life.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, especially like when running a business, there's things in life, taxes, accounting. Sure, you cannot do those things, and you could probably do okay for a number of years, but at a certain point, it's gonna catch up with you because you didn't do it. You know, at the same time, I think I used to work in dentistry. This is like brushing your teeth. Yeah, you don't have to brush your teeth every day or even twice a day. But as you get older, as that compounds, eventually that's gonna catch up with you. I don't care how good your genetics are. I don't care how strong your bones and your whatever is, like, it doesn't matter. At some point, your teeth will break down and you either have no teeth or you're going to have partially fixed teeth or something's going to happen. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yes.
And it really is that effort up front, that day-to-day effort on the things that are hard. You know, like I don't love doing finances. I hate doing bills. I hate accounting. I just don't love that stuff. Why? Because I don't want to think about it. It's not fun for me. You know what I mean? Like I want to think about the new ideas, the exciting things. I want to create some stuff.
Right.
That stuff, let somebody else do that, right? Like that's the reason that other jobs exist. But at like a certain point, you have to be realistic with yourself in the sense of, well, this has to get done. Otherwise, business, like we don't survive. You know what I mean?
Right. So you have taken it full circle again back to Tower of Glass. So using your teeth as an example, if your teeth are important to you, take care of your teeth. Brush your teeth, floss. Don't eat a lot of sweets. Don't eat a lot of sweets right before bed, right? If your teeth are not important to you, and I can't tell you if they are, it's not up to me. It's up to you.
Yeah.
If your teeth are not important to you, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And suffer the consequences. Right?
Yeah.
And in my view, my universal view is that everything in the human experience comes back to that. Like if your body is important to you, don't only feed it ice cream, right? I can choose, like, hey, if I make enough money, all I'm going to do is sit on my couch and eat ice cream. Like we know what the outcome will be. but only I can decide if that is the most important thing to me. Like if the most important thing to me is sitting on my couch and eating ice cream, that's up to me, and I will bear the consequences. And so that is life, and the human experience in a nutshell is having that meditation determine, okay, what's important to me? What's, is it important or not? And it may be getting, taking this full circle. It may be that the money conversation is a means to an end. Like, hey, if I do this one project, then I'll have the cash to hire the person that can do my accounting, so I don't have to do it anymore, right?
Right.
And so if that's what's important to you, but it's not about the money. Again, it's about, well, I hate doing accounting. I don't want to do it anymore. So I want to be successful enough to not have to do it.
Right. But what I find interesting is that's a fine attitude to have. But this is where one of the things where like the whole going back to like the universal wage and doing what you're passionate about, you know what I mean? That way you can just do whatever you want. This is where I think that we are in a very special time right now. Because you see people all day, every day, literally just doing what they want on the internet, posting videos and content about, I'm passionate about plumbing. So they literally spend their entire day making videos about plumbing and how you can do your own plumbing and blah, 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 blah. And they've got hundreds of thousands of followers that they've now monetized, and they literally get paid to do what they're passionate about. And I think that's kind of where this interesting conversation kind of comes in. And I think it kind of brings it full circle around to us as far as like, what are we passionate about, right? The why. Why do you want to do things? I think that that's probably one of the most important questions that anyone could answer for themselves is, why do I want to do things? And then the details, as far as like how that happens afterwards, are things that you can figure out. But what's most important is that you're doing something that you are passionate about. You know, Gary Vaynerchuk, I think I mentioned him before on our previous episodes, but he actually talks about this a lot. Look, man, if you're passionate about the Chicago Bears football team, you know what I mean? You started a YouTube channel where that's all you talked about was Chicago Bears. He's like, I guarantee that if as long as you were consistent, you showed up every day and were consistent, I almost guarantee you that within 6 to 9 months, you could get a sponsorship for that would literally allow you to quit your job and do that full time. But you have to know the why. Like, why are you passionate? Like, it doesn't need to be fancy. Like, it doesn't need to be, I love the Chicago Bears. Why? 'Cause I love football. I love the Chicago Bears because I'm from Chicago. So I'm going to talk about them all day, every day. I'm going to analyze everything that happens with them because I'm passionate about that, right? That's what it is. I think that that's the really interesting thing about the why is the more passionate you are, these minute details that are kind of we see as annoying, like accounting and doing that kind of stuff, doesn't really matter because you'll figure out a way. Like you said, if I'm really passionate about this, I'm going to do it. And because I don't like doing that, I'm going to eventually make enough money to just not do it. You know what I mean? I'm just going to keep going down the passionate road to be able to make enough money to where I can just be like, okay, you know what? I've now got enough income. I'm going to pay you to do this because I hate doing it. And I don't love, it's like the bad part of my day, even though I'm doing what I'm passionate about. Not all of the details, you're not going to be passionate about all the details. But because you're passionate about what you're doing, I think that it helps. It's kind of like you don't really notice as much. You know, for me, it's like hiking in the woods. I love being in the forest. I love getting out into nature. Do I love hiking up long miles and steep inclines and things like that? No, because I get tired and I get thirsty and I get hungry and it drains me out. But I do it. Those details don't matter to me because I'm passionate about being there. I'm passionate about what I'm seeing, what I'm encountering. Like all of the details become more exciting because I'm passionate about where I'm at and what I'm doing.
That's right. And so I'm going to challenge all of us, including myself, to commit to one thing, which is there's something I came up with years ago, half jokingly in marketing, which is anything not worth doing is not worth doing well. Right?
Yeah.
Conversely, and this is the challenge, conversely, anything that you determine for yourself is worth doing really, really well. Like it actually does. And there are times there's, different people in different careers talk about being in the zone. And I've experienced that in my life, right? Mm. And to me, part of being in the zone is when you feel connected to the universe and you feel in tune with your surroundings or your environment, like you're in harmony, your soul and your physical being are in harmony with everything that's going on. Right. And you are at an expert level, like an advanced level of that thing. And so to me, the challenge for all of us is, do the hard work to explore, okay, what's driving me? What makes me Kevin Peterson? And what makes me a good Kevin Peterson? And why do I care? Right? And then once you explore that, then start acting very deliberately about, okay, if this is something I'm going to put time and energy into, to me, it's going to be like art. Like I want it to be really, really good. I'm going to be smart about it, deliberate, skilled, focused. I'm going to navigate focused. I'm going to navigate it well. I'm going to be patient with the process. Like I'm not going to expect that I can create a masterful art, piece of art on the first try. Not overnight. Yeah. And that is, it's coupling the passion that you were talking about with the rest of it, which is skill. It's everything we just said, the skill and the focus and the deliberate effort to be the very best you can be at that thing.
Yeah. So to your challenge, I would like to add a little extra exercise for everybody who's here listening and who's going to go through this challenge. Write it down. Take some time. And when you're writing things, and I say this, I'll probably say it many more times, but the more senses that you can involve into this process, so have a scented candle or something scented, something that smells, a specific smell, a specific light, right? Whether you put on like a red light or a blue light, or there's a certain lighting style that you have. Also the color of pen that you use while you do this. But putting pen to paper, the more senses that you can involve in this process of discovering this why, I feel like the more authentic and genuine it'll be for you. That is how we learn deeper knowledge. There's literally a dude, I've mentioned the book before, it's Beginner's Guide to Constructing the Universe, A Voyage from 1 to 10, the Archetypes of Nature, Art, and Science by Michael S. Schneider. He encourages this in his book. As you're reading about these things, he wants you to draw the pictures, because as you do that, you're using more of your being. So that deeper knowledge is going to be created. Whereas as opposed to just listening to a podcast. But if I'm listening and reading and writing down notes, that's different. I'm going to get a different level of knowledge as opposed to just listening. So as you're going through this challenge and process of discovering the why and the passion, really try to involve that.
I accept your challenge, and I can be better at that. So I will take that very seriously and do that.
Well, this has been fantastic. And thank you for giving me the quality answer I was looking for about money. It's like, you know what I mean? Because it's a lot of those times I want to just like, well, there's a lot of money in it, so I'm going to do it. But it's like, I'm not that passionate. I don't, you know what I mean? It's just, so the why is more important. So if there's a why behind the money, like, well, if I do this and I get this money, then it allows me to do X, Y, Z, then I can involve my passion into it. And then it's not just about the money. It really is about, I can help someone, I can fulfill a need, and fulfill my need. I can do something that I've been wanting or needing to do. So,
amen. No, this has been a great exploration today.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
Always a pleasure.
Yes, indeed. Well, with that, looking forward to the next episode. Everybody, thank you so much. Enjoy the meditation and the writing exercise, and include those colors, include those smells, include those visuals, the lights, different things, and we'll see you next time.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone.